Thank you very much for joining us. I am Komla Adum. Now, some commercial banks in the country could lose their universal banking license later this week, and this is because these banks in question may not be able to meet the new minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis as deadline for raising the money expires today. Business editor George Rafi has more in the following report.
These banks, as at the close of work last Friday, were still not in a position that one can confidently say that they will indeed meet the new capital levels of 400 million Ghana cedis by the close of work today. Some of them were still moving fast to try and pull together some last-minute deals to help them meet these new capital levels. However, persons close to the regulator say they are still not convinced by these commitments coming from the banks. Some of these banks in question are also strongly lobbying for some last-minute government intervention, if granted, could bring about what some are describing as an interesting surprise. Or would the Bank of Ghana have their way by firmly ensuring that no waivers are granted to banks that cannot meet the capital at the close of work today? Well, for some, let's wait for that surprise. Earlier this month, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, said 22 commercial banks have met the new capital requirement of 400 million Ghana cedis. Now, after this, 3 banks also came out to announce that they have met the new levels. So can we say that it's about 5 banks that are struggling to meet this new capital requirement of 400 million Ghana cedis? Well, that's just a question.
So you heard the Joy Business editor, George Rafi, with that wrap there. In studio now is Phil Namfuri. He is a researcher and an analyst with Joy Business. Thank you very much for joining us, Phil. Why has it become very important for the banks to recapitalize?
Okay, so Kamala, 2 years ago, between 2015 and 2016, Bank of Ghana conducted what they called an asset quality review. Essentially, they were testing the stress levels of these banks. Can the banks withstand shocks to the economy if something goes wrong? And it was found that all the banks in Ghana, most of them, couldn't withstand these shocks. Okay. So Bank of Ghana said, you know what, going forward, we need to look at the minimum capital requirements. Other things have caused the minimum capital requirement, which was previously 120 million Ghana cedis, to lose its value, if you can call it like that. Right. So they said 400 million is the new number. And they implemented the minimum capital directive last year, 2017, September, where they said you have the whole of this year. And by today, 31st December, you should have met this 400 million from wherever you stand. Now, Bank of Ghana says you have a number of options in meeting this. Okay. You're going to use either a fresh capital injection, that's new money coming in, or money coming from your previous investors, or your already existing shareholders or investors. Or you capitalize your income surplus. What that means is that when you make, after the operational year, your profit, what you have in it, you convert it to capital. So you take some of it and you add it to your capital. So if for example, your capital is 200 million as it is, and you make some profit about 400 million, you take 200 million out of that, add it to your 200 million, and you make your minimum capital requirement. Okay. Over the course of the year, we've seen banks doing this, where they have shareholder meetings, AGMs, annual general meetings, or extraordinary general meetings to meet this. So shareholders will bring in new money, or they seek permission from shareholders to convert this income surplus, their profit, to the minimum capital. Okay. So we've seen that over the course of the year, banks are doing this. And the number we've put right now is about 22 banks.
22 banks have met the minimum capital threshold by now.
Now, that's just a number I would say is, there's no definitive number yet, because we have to wait and be prudent with the governor to come out and tell us that these number of banks have met. But now we can see that about 22 have met the minimum capital requirement.
And what happens to those who are unable to meet the 400 million cedi threshold? Okay. I mean, today's the deadline, we know. So if they are unable to meet that threshold by end of day today, what happens to them?
Okay. In the course of the year, Bank of Ghana says, do well to meet it. You know, we've had issues in the banking sector where there was some regulatory forbearance, some laxity coming from the regulator. Now, they said, you know what, we're going to go hard on the banks. We're going to make sure that the banking system is strong. So banks had options. Either you downgrade to a savings and loans company where your minimum capital requirement is far and way less, about 50 million Ghana cedis, or you give up your license. And in the course of the year, Bank of Ghana came up with the voluntary winding down regulations or directive, where if you're a bank and you feel like you can't take the heat anymore, or you want to clear out of the system, then you go through some procedures, and then it's done in an orderly manner, so as not to affect you and I the key members of the bank, which are the depositors. So if banks can't meet, then either they downgrade or you lose your license. But now, as we sit here, I was going through the banking sector report for November. It covers events up to October 2018.
Okay.
And Bank of Ghana reiterated this point that today, 31st, is the deadline. So some are arguing that they might take a soft stance on them. We saw in Nigeria that once upon a time there were 89 banks, and they also increased the minimum capital requirement. The banks came down to about 20, roughly. So it depends on the Bank of Ghana, and they will take an action that wouldn't jeopardize the financial system so as to bring more panic and more distress to an already distressed situation where we've seen throughout the year that financial issues have trended.
Right. And how about, you mentioned winders. I mean, they could wind down if they feel they are unable to meet this threshold. How about mergers? I mean, was there an opportunity for some of these banks to merge?
Okay, so in the course of the year again, we've seen a number of attempted mergers and or acquisitions. Okay. Merger, coming together, acquisition, one bank takes over the operations of another bank. We've seen that in just last week, we saw that there was a story about First National Bank trying to take over or attempting to take over or wanting to take over GHL Bank. Yeah. That was previously Ghana Home Loans. We also saw there was this Sahel Sahara, GN Bank, and others all come together. Mergers and acquisitions are a way to meet. If one bank has a minimum capital of about 120, one has about 80, another has about 200, and you come all together and you put it all together, they can meet the 400. But it depends on the operations of the banks. In this same GN Sahara Bank story, we saw in the story that one of them's operations didn't tie with the other's operations. So mergers and acquisitions are a good way, but it shouldn't just be done for the need of meeting minimum capital requirement, because long term you are going to function as an institution, and if you don't find the right cohesion, there will be a problem. If you read finance literature, it shows that about 50% of mergers globally fail to achieve synergy. And by synergy, I mean this cohesion. Okay. So yes, merging is one way, taking over is one way. But the banks doing this must make sure that it's done right and it gets the blessing of the Bank of Ghana. All
right, Phil, you hold on for me right now. We can speak now to banking consultant Nana Utui Champong. Thank you, sir, for your time here on Joy News today. If some banks still fail to meet the minimum requirements by end of day today, what is their fate?
Well, they are already structures in place to take care of those. An amalgamated trust has been formed to assist those who are not able to meet, either on their own or combined. And so before the end of the day, that will be put in place to resolve those who are in that sort of country. There are one or two who have also decided that they may want to revert to SNL, savings and loans. So I think, and we are not talking about a big number. So initially the governor gave 22, and there were a couple who were merging. So we are talking about 6 of them, and they will be resolved before the end of the day.
You talk about the amalgamated situation, but is it the case that by close of today, if these banks are unable to meet the 400 million threshold, then that option is available for them? Do you think the central bank will take a softer stance from now?
No, it is available to them now, before the end of the day, because it's been in place for a number of weeks now. So and they are being assisted through the efforts of the government, because right from the onset, the government promised that no depositor will lose their money. So if a bank has to collapse because of this, then depositors' money will be put at risk. So they ensured that anybody who is ready to play by the rule, they will assist. So it's an assistance from government that is being put in place. And so by the end of the day, all those who are left will have one of two choices. Either you decide to step down for an SNL license, or you take the money that's available to you, which may be either on your own or as a merger, and merge and then proceed. So that is my understanding of the situation as of now.
There have been some concerns that the central bank is expected to come out and mention the banks that have been able to meet the minimum capital requirements. And it's past midday. The central
No,
bank hasn't spoken.
They can't come out before the 5 p.m. And by 5 p.m., Bank of Ghana too has closed. So therefore, if anything, we will know about that on the second.
By 5 p.m.
When you return, yeah.
And what's the impact of the current situation, on the banking sector and the economy at large?
Oh, no, it's very positive because we all know that by 5 p.m. today, the issue would have been settled one way or the other. Those who have made already announced, and then those left over will also let us know by 5 p.m. If there's one or two, it's not something that we should, worry too much about. So, as I said, there are 5 sometimes in question, and they are all being resolved one way or the other. So by 5 p.m., we will know the score, and I think the Bank of Ghana will be advised not to say anything until after 5 p.m., by which time they have also closed. So on the second, we'll know the full situation.
Many thanks to you, Nana Otui Champon. He's a banking consultant, and we wish you a happy new year in advance as we cross over into 2019, sir. Now, Phil, let's wrap up this conversation real quick. He mentioned that there are some options for the banks who are unable to, meet this threshold by 5 p.m. today. So what should the banks who are unable to get to this level be thinking about right now with about 5 hours to 5 o'clock?
Well, that would be subjective, Komla. Again, he made a very key point, and the fact that the Bank of Ghana wouldn't want to put you and I, our deposits, at risk. So, of course, somebody's running his bank, but you are under the eye of the Bank of Ghana. And if the time comes and you can't meet your minimum capital requirement, Bank of Ghana will step in and advise on the best way forward so that it doesn't affect the entire financial system, because we've seen a lot of shakes. If you check the GDP figures, you've seen that the financial services sector has been in negative growth 3 quarters running. I don't think they'll want that going forward. So I'm sure they'll do everything to ensure that there's an orderly transition come 2019.
Before I let you go, Phil, 2018 we saw a lot of issues in the banking sector, takeovers here and there. Moving into 2019, what is the financial sector looking like?
Okay, so I'll start off with the banking sector. There are 4 parts of the financial system. There's the banking, there's insurance, pensions, and the capital markets. With the banking, we've seen the reforms by the Bank of Ghana. There are a lot. Today, one directive is released. Tomorrow, one. All these are supposed to bolster confidence in the sector, together with this minimum capital. Insurance also, we should see some good growth. Pensions also, we see some good growth. And especially the capital markets. We saw that the Securities and Exchange Commission, they have been up to task in the coming years. Some will argue that there have been some laxities, but they are coming out with more and stronger regulations to ensure that the whole sector, all these 4, are put on the right trajectory. All right,
thank you very much, Phil. He is a researcher and an analyst with Joy Business. Thank you very much. Now, let's do some other stories. And the minority in Parliament is cautioning government not to waste the $3 billion it intends to raise in sovereign bonds. The House approved the facility before it went on its December break. Earlier this year, government borrowed $2 billion on the capital market, which the minority says was misused. The ranking member on Parliament's Finance Committee, Kezala Toforson, says government's borrowing is driving the economy in the wrong direction.
I'm having sleepless night because where we are going now today, you know something, the debt servicing interest is about 18 billion for the fiscal year 2019, and then wages and salaries is also 19 billion. So if you pay one cedi in wage, you are paying 1 cedi in debt.
Then on what basis are you in principle supporting the idea of the 3 billion euro bond?
That's what I gave you a caveat, that if they are going to use it for the purposes of infrastructure or something that can pay by itself, I support it. But if we are going to use it for NAPCO to do chop and free SHS that they use, the Eurobond, the first one they used, they use it to pay for free SHS. And free SHS, Eurobond, capital market for free SHS. Is that what we want?
Now, we know that there is a running story, a developing story about an Assemblies of God pastor, Tema Community 4, who was stabbed and killed by his own nephew before church service yesterday. We have some updates on that story because family members of the pastor who was killed by his own nephew are discounting claims the deceased was engaged in human sacrifices and rituals. The suspect has confessed to the crime but justified claiming the pastor had targeted him for rituals. According to sources, the deceased was accosted by his own nephew while moving from the church office into the main auditorium for the day's service at about 9 a.m. Sunday. Police say Reverend Nabeg Mado was pronounced dead on arrival at the Tema General Hospital. But speaking on behalf of the family, Dan Makandan urged the public to disregard what he describes as an erroneous impression created by the suspect in a viral video. Maxwell Agbagba is there for us and joins us on the telephone. Hello, Maxwell. Tell us exactly what the family has been saying about these claims and why they want us to discount them.
Well, they are essentially saying that the claims made by suspect in the video is not a true reflection of who the deceased was. They are saying that the deceased is a staunch man of God and is known against as such for decades. So for the claims, being made by the suspect, they think they're quite, unfounded. In fact, there were earlier reports suggesting that the suspect is not mentally stable. When we asked the family what the mental condition of the suspect was, or whether he has any history of being mentally unstable, they told us that they will not be in the position to tell us that they are relying or waiting for experts to determine that if truly is mentally unstable or not. But they say that they are shocked by the conduct of the suspect. But if you come here, the church compound here at the Tema Committee for Assemblies of God Church, because of church members are gathered here on the compound, but a lot of them, in morning clothes. In fact, they have been in the presence of about 3 police officers here, ensuring that there is order here. Just some minutes ago, the General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God Church, Reverend Professor Fort Manso, actually arrived here on the ground to come and commiserate with the family. So in one of the auditoriums, we have him in there together with some family members and then some church members who are also seated under one of the canopies here.
Maxwell, we understand that the family head has issued a statement. What is contained in this statement?
Well, the suspect was what I stated earlier about them saying that the head pastor of the Assemblies of God Church was not engaged in any sort of human sacrifice. It was quite a very short statement that they released. But the Assemblies of God Church itself has also released a statement. I'm sure that's what you mentioned reference to. And in that statement, they are asking all to come and also continue to pray with the church and then they are also saying that the church has handed over the body to the police for investigation to actually continue from that.
And do we know where the suspect is currently?
Well, we are told he's still in custody and will still be processed for court.
All right, many thanks to you, my colleague Maxwell Agbagba at the Tema Community for Assemblies of God Church, where we understand the head pastor was stabbed and killed by his own nephew. As Maxwell Agbagba reports, family members and church members have gathered at the church premises. He also mentioned that the superintendent of the Assemblies of God Church just arrived at the premises, and the family is most importantly discounting claims that the nephew who killed the pastor was engaged in some rituals. You're still watching Joy News Today. We'll take a quick break, return with some more stories. You're welcome back to Joy News Today. Now, Senior Minister Yao Safo-Malfo says government will ensure that both local and international automobile companies operating in Ghana get equal incentives to enhance their operations. In July this year, government signed 2 memoranda of understanding with Nissan and Volkswagen Motors to establish assembly plants in the country. Many have questioned government's commitment to promoting made-in-Ghana goods and by extension assisting local assembling plants like Kantanka Automobile. But Mr. Safo-Malfo believes the engagement with foreign companies is to attract foreign investment into the country and will not in any way disadvantage indigenous manufacturing companies. The senior minister made these comments at the 38th annual technology exhibition by Christo Asafo Missions here in Accra.
This is the efficiency of all this. And therefore, whatever Apostle Kojo Safo is doing to enhance technology has to be encouraged by government. I also put it that the government has signed 2 MOUs with VW and Nissan to establish assembly plants in Ghana next year. That's a few days from now. And we have provided a stream of incentives to VW and Nissan. We have decided that indigenous companies like Apostle Kojo-Safo, who are into the assembly plant business, should also enjoy the same type of incentives that we provided to these foreign firms. Perhaps we may even have to give them more, so that we encourage local production in the assembly plants.
But given the same incentive to a local company and a foreign company, you are more or less, I mean, it's going to be difficult for them to compete with those foreign companies.
It's not quite true. The local company has an advantage. When it comes to land and other facilities, the local company may be using its own. And therefore, what has happened in the past is many times you provide special incentives to attract foreign investment. That's the whole purpose of Ghana Investment Center, is to provide additional incentives to attract foreign capital. The capital is not within Ghana, and the capital has a choice. It can go to Cote d'Ivoire, can go to Gambia, can go to Nigeria. So you provide incentives to attract them. We are saying that all these incentives will also be made additional to the local producer. So the idea is to encourage local production, because if you are a local producer, you have an advantage. What we should do is also to create a market for local production, so that we provide them with a market advantage. If we are buying pickups and we buy some from Apostle Safo, it helps.
Now, life in Ghana's countryside could be boring with very little to entertain oneself. But an amazing group of children in the western region town of Bonsu Nkwanta have formed a child band using recycled materials for their own handmade instruments. Joy News' Justice Beidou went to meet them and found this report.
Meet Alfred. He's just 10, but the things he does are unique from what many 10-year-olds do, especially in his home village of Bonsu Nkwanta. He is a talented artist and also puts together things to form musical instruments. Today, he is putting together his own jazz system using pieces of wood, rubber ties, abandoned rubber gallons, nails, and rubber bands. For years, Alfred has been producing these instruments on his own, and through that has now put together neighborhood friends who use his products for their child band named the Spirit Boys and Girls Band.
I learned this from my uncle on the farm. I use the waste materials that we don't see. This helps us entertain ourselves.
Once he is done, his friends, many of them younger than himself, mount the stage and serenade a street audience just in front of his home. He plays his heart out until his jazz band develops a fault. He fixes it, and the kids get back singing. The children do not just do gospel songs, but secular ones too. The street music goes on. Cooking activities run late into the evening. His mother, Georgina Dede, wants a better future not just for Alfred, but for all the children involved in this child band.
I am solely responsible for his upkeep. I wish he could make a future out of this. I can't say for now, but if someone helps me, I'll be happy.
Such indigenous craft as building instruments is one that used to be very popular around Ghana. But with urbanization and modernity, it seems many of these are passing away with time. But these children in towns like Bonsu Nkwanta are bent on keeping some of these innovations. Spade, Joy News, Bonsu Nkwanta in the Western region.
Some really industrious and innovative kids there in the Western region putting their talents to task with the little resources they have in that part of the country. But not all children are as lucky as those we just saw on the television. There are many others who are on the streets and have been resigned to begging and, begging for alms just to keep body and soul together. Well, with a passion to see every street kid transformed and taken back to their homes, the Cherish a Child Foundation was set up. And we have the founder here with us in studio to do some discussion about streetism and street children. Thank you very much, Salome, for your time.
Thank you.
We know that this issue of streetism is such a big deal.
Yes.
I mean, we've been trying so hard to deal with it for God knows how long.
Yeah.
How serious is this situation?
Okay, so this is quite serious because when we interact with the children, we get to know a lot of stories and the reasons why they came on the streets. And we've noticed that there are a lot of loopholes that is allowing this and allowing an increase in street children. And Cherish a Child has the passion to make sure that we support the government to get rid of this challenge. So in a small way, we are doing a few things, and
we'll speak about those few things you're doing. But you mentioned rightly that there are a lot of loopholes and reasons or triggers why we have a lot of these children drop out and then be on the street. What are some of these?
Okay, so we realized that from one interaction we had with a kid, and realized that the transport systems are also supporting this in a way where children are allowed to travel unaccompanied, and they just go with a story of I'm traveling to meet a friend, I'm traveling to meet a family friend or a family member, and I don't have the funds, and then they allow the children in. So it makes it difficult because some of the children, we take them home and they come back easily, even without having the money for transportation, they're able to come back. That is one of it. And we cannot take the parental issue out of it. It plays a role in this as well. Some parents get fed up with their children when they are being stubborn in the house. So when they get fed up with them, the children also, they find friends who will listen to them, friends who will make them happy. So they come and it's all freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the parents actually sent their children out there to be on the street to beg for these monies, and at the end of the day, they come and make accounts to them. That's how they feed anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. Some parents are supporting this in a way. I'm looking at I don't know if they are Muslims or I don't know. Those those new Ghanaians who are also joining the child people is a problem.
Okay.
I think we could do something about it.
Okay.
Because we shouldn't use children to make money.
From your perspective as a foundation, do you have any estimates of a number of children who are on the streets at the moment, and how many of them have you been able to effectively rescue and take back to their parents?
Okay, so to give you a rough estimate, I can say that based on the programs we've had, so we've been able to gather over 100 for our programs. Okay. But I'm not sure of those we have never met, and I believe there are more than that. There are lots in different areas.
Okay.
So for those we have been able to reach, we have made about 20 trips with street children
20 trips,
back home, and I would say not all of them were a success because of other challenges that is beyond our control.
But how many of them have you been able to reunite with their parents?
So we have reunited about 10 who are currently schooling or learning a trade, who are still home. And for the trips, we've had a lot. We realized that there's a challenge with moving a child who has been on the street for years straight to the house without any transition, any program of, transforming them. So that is one of the challenges, because we don't have the means to do that. We are doing what we can with frequent programs, building relationships with them, and then gaining their trust. We continually meet with them, we inspire them, and then we challenge them. Now we are using those who have successfully been reunited with their family to reach out to the rest. So just this 29th, we gathered them, and we had about 4 of them talking to them and sharing their experiences and encouraging them to also leave.
I'm sure you've come across some who have told you that they followed their friends out of the homes and then got onto the streets.
Yes.
Can you share with us a typical experience that was shared with you?
Okay, so we had one little boy called Robert. He was, I think, 16 years. And Robert is one smart little boy who had just joined the SHS.
Okay.
He mentioned one school in Cape Coast, and he, with the pursuit of finding the brother in Ashaman, he came to Accra, and then he was short of funds. So he now was sitting at one bus stop, and then one of the street children came to him and said, so we can be friends, and then we can move to Opebia. So he moved from Accra and then came to Opebia, and he stayed there for about 5 days before we found him.
Okay.
And then when we asked, in fact, he was looking very different from all of them. So we noticed that this is a fresh arrival, and we took interest, and then we are happy to say he's back home and schooling. He's gone back to school.
All right. Before let's wrap up this conversation. Moving forward, what does Cherish a Child Foundation look to achieve, say, in the next 2 to 3 years in this space in dealing with the streetism issue?
Okay, in the next 2 to 3 years, we are looking forward to partnering with the government to do a lot, because there's a lot we could do, but because of the limitation with funds and also, the authorities, we are sort of moving slowly.
Right.
But with all the partners around, we believe we can do a lot, because with the relationship we have built with the children, we believe if we continually work with them, a lot of them will be transformed and will want to go back.
Finally, are all these children you speak about, when you meet them, are they always willing to go home?
Okay, so it's not a straight yes, and that's why it takes a lot of patience and determination. So I'll just give you an example. One of the kids we took home 3 times before finally he is settled.
Okay.
So it's not a straight yes. So that's why we continually build relationship with them. We meet with them often. We organize programs where we show them clips of drug. I mean, most of them have issues with drugs, and it makes it difficult for them to go home because without it they struggle. So they wouldn't want to go home.
Okay. So how are you funded?
Okay. So for now we are just gathering our own monies and getting a little support from friends and family to make things work. And sometimes some of the issues are quite urgent, and you can't say, let it wait for me to go around and make money before I can address it. Because when a child makes up his mind, the least delay can cause a change of mind, because friends will take over. Yeah.
My producer wants to support your foundation. How can she do that?
All right. So we would need the voice of the media. We understand with this national issue, it's difficult if you don't have a voice, and we believe with the voice of Joy News, we can reach far.
You just need a voice. You don't need.
We need a voice. We need every support with partners who have rehabilitation centers.
Okay.
So if a child makes up his mind, quickly we can take the child to the rehab for him to be worked on. We need support with a transition home. Okay. Because like I mentioned earlier, when a child has been on the street for years, the direct movement from the street straight to the house has been the challenge that is bringing some of them back
onto the streets.
Yeah, because he needs to understand how to submit to parents. He needs to understand how to live without the drugs. He needs to understand how to, appreciate the need to pursue a career. All those takes time to do. So,
and how can people reach out to you, for example, if somebody wants to make a cash donation or any resources in terms of materials to you? Do you have a website? Do you have a call number?
We have a Facebook page, Cherish a Child GH.
Okay.
And if anyone wants to reach out to us, the person can call 020 630 6343.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Madame Salome Delali at Atigla.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best, and we know that people will come on board and support you in this very wonderful endeavor. Well, up next in business, freight forwarders warn of possible revenue losses and ECOWAS lost Ghana's warehousing system. We have details of that when Darrell Kwao joins you right after this.